What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right, so want to go ahead and continue with this top 15 centers listing. Just to do a brief recap, at number 15, I had Nikola Jokic. At number 14, I had the Chief, Robert Parrish. At number 13, I have Mcadoo, Bob Mcadoo, all right, who had his greatest years in the NBA playing with the then Buffalo Braves, now known as, of course, the franchise is known as the Los Angeles Clippers. And he had some stints with other teams as well. He played with the New York Knicks, and he played with the Boston Celtics, and he played with the Philadelphia 76ers. But he also played with the Pistons, and he played with the Nets. But outside of the Braves, his most notable stint is with the Lakers, where as a valuable six-man, he won 2 championships with the franchise. Didn't quite live up to his total expectations as a player due to injuries, but he was one hell of a player, man. Bob Mcadoo was a precursor to the later big man, the so-called skilled big man, in that he was 6'9", 210, 215 pounds. So even in that era, he was a bit small for a big man, especially height, bulk-wise and height. However, he was able to utilize his strengths and take advantage of his opponent's weaknesses. Compared to him, most centers, although more bigger and stronger and more powerful, were slower. And they weren't as willing to come out of the paint. So Mcadoo, who had range outside to about 20, 21, 22 feet, would take advantage of that. This is a guy that had no problems routinely shooting from 19 to 20 feet out. And then, when the big man would, at times, come outside to guard him, he would blow right past him. But then, when Mcadoo was guarded with someone smaller, that's when Mcadoo could utilize his size and his strength advantage and play like a traditional big man. So he was virtually unstoppable, especially when he was at his healthiest, which is when he was with the Buffalo Braves. All right, so he was born in 1951. He was born and raised in Greensboro, North Carolina. And as a kid, Bob Mcadoo attended Ben L. Smith High School, where he excelled not just in basketball and track, but was also in the marching band as a saxophone player. As a senior, he led Smith to the state basketball semifinals, as well as in the state track tournament, where he set a new state high jump record of 6 feet 7 inches, beating out future North Carolina teammate Bobby Jones. Out of high school, Mcadoo initially lacked the academic test scores required by the Division I schools, so he chose to enroll at Vincennes University, then a junior college in Vincennes, Indiana, from 1969 through 1971. Mcadoo was named a junior college All-American as a sophomore in 1971. At Vincennes, Mcadoo averaged 19.3 points and 10 rebounds in 1969 and 70, and 25 points and 11 rebounds in 1970 and 71. Mcadoo played for Team USA at the 1971 Pan American Games in the summer of 1971, averaging 11 points per game. Mcadoo enrolled at the University of North Carolina in 1971, the only junior college player Dean Smith recruited in his career. Mcadoo, playing alongside Bobby Jones, led the 1971-72 Tar Heels, coached by Dean Smith, to a 26-5 record and a Final Four of the 1972 NCAA University Division basketball tournament. Mcadoo averaged 19.5 points and 10.1 rebounds. He was named first-team All-American. He also earned MVP honors at the ACC tournament. Now, at that time, there was a rule that the NBA had, and I think they, if I'm not mistaken, I believe they borrowed this rule from the ABA. Now, this rule they got rid of in 1977. It was called the hardship rule, where I think if you have evidence that shows your family or you are in dire straits financially, you could enter the NBA draft earlier to help support your family financially. He utilized this rule and entered the 1972 NBA draft. And he was picked number 2 overall by the Buffalo Braves. Mcadoo, despite the fact that the team only went 21-61 his rookie year, had a fine rookie year, averaging 18 points and 9.1 rebounds per game. But it was the next 3 years that Mcadoo turned into a superstar. Individually, Mcadoo averaged over 30 points per game each season, winning the scoring title each season. And slowly but surely, the Buffalo Braves improved as a team. In 1974-75, I believe he was the league MVP that year, and he averaged 34.5 points per game, the most of his career. And during that playoffs in that year, he, at the time, became the youngest player to have a 50-point, 20-rebound game. Teamed up with Iron Man Randy Smith and Jim McMillan, the Braves would finish with a record of 49-33. During the 1976 NBA playoffs, Mcadoo and the Braves would finally advance out of the first round, beating the Sixers as Mcadoo averaged 30.3 points, 18.7 rebounds, and 4.3 assists in 47.3 minutes per game of action. However, in the following round, the Braves would again be eliminated by the Boston Celtics, who would once again go on to win the finals. As a matter of fact, when you look at Mcadoo's 3 best seasons, he averaged, in those 3 years, 32.1 points, 13.8 rebounds, 2.8 assists, 1.2 steals, 2.5 blocks, 51% shooting from the floor, and 79% from the foul line. He was an amazing, amazing player who, in his prime, was 6'9" and 215 pounds. In shoes, his height was probably around 6'10", 6'10 and a half. So he was as tall as maybe as tall as, say, Alonzo Mourning. Yet, he had the frame of somebody more like Dennis Rodman. He was not powerful. His game was not predicated on size and strength. But he was a matchup nightmare for the traditional center. He was a jump shooter and was a precursor to many of the stretch 4s and 5s that we see today. His range at the time went out to 20 feet, and he posed a problem matchup-wise with most bigs. So Mcadoo was phenomenal. And whenever he was guarded against someone who was smaller than he was and was quicker, that's when he would utilize his size, often trying to back them into the paint and take advantage of his size. So he was just a matchup nightmare for many teams. Unfortunately, he just didn't have the talent around him to be truly, truly successful. During the 1976-77 season, early on, after a 42-point, 29 rebound performance against the Pacers, Bob McAdoo was traded from the Braves to the New York Knicks. Over the next couple of years, the Knicks would be a mediocre team, not terrible. McAdoo would average between 26 and 27 points per game. His production down a little bit from the Braves years, but still one hell of a player. Then again, in New York, he had more scorers, so he didn't have to score quite as much. On February 12th, 1979, McAdoo, who I believe was not working out and getting along with a lot of his teammates in New York, he was traded by the Knicks to the Boston Celtics. And in his tenure with Boston under player/coach Dave Cowens, Boston finished 29-53. McAdoo averaged 20.6 points, 7.1 rebounds, playing fewer minutes in the front court with Cowens, Cedric Maxwell, Marvin Barnes, and Rick Roby. After the season, Boston fired Cowens as coach and replaced him with Bill Fitch, and Larry Bird arrived from Indiana State, and McAdoo was traded to Detroit. On September the 6th of 1979, McAdoo was traded by the Celtics to the Pistons for a number 1 1980 draft pick. Joe Barry Carroll was later selected. In 1979-1980, McAdoo joined a Pistons team that finished 16-66 under coaches Dick Vitale, who had encouraged the trade for McAdoo, and Vitale's replacement, Richie Adubato. 12 wins and only 58 losses. Playing alongside Hall of Famer Bob Delir, McAdoo averaged 21.1 points and 8.1 rebounds in 58 games. On March 11th, 1981, McAdoo was waived by the Pistons after playing in only 6 games with the team in 80 and 81 as Detroit finished 21-61. By this time, multiple injuries to McAdoo over the last couple of years have begun to rob him of his explosiveness, his jumping ability, and some of his quickness. And this is a consequence of his diminishing scoring average. And on February 19th, 1981, McAdoo, who had been injured, claimed he was healthy and asked to be reinstated into the Pistons starting lineup. Coach Scotty Robertson, at this time the coach was Scotty Robertson, denied his request, saying McAdoo had not practiced and wasn't in proper physical shape. McAdoo asked to be allowed to go home and was allowed to leave. The next day, Pistons general manager Jack McCloskey notified McAdoo to not return for the rest of the season. McAdoo was then waived. The next month, McAdoo signed as a free agent with the New Jersey Nets. He played 10 games with the Nets, averaging 15 minutes per contest, and the Nets finished 24-58. One day before Christmas 1981, McAdoo was traded by the Nets to the Lakers for a 1983 second-round draft pick. McAdoo had not played for the Nets in the 81-82 season, and Mitch Kupchak had become injured for the Lakers. And despite the fact that McAdoo was not the same player, He had a memorable end to his NBA career, winning 2 NBA titles with the Los Angeles Lakers in '82 and '85 as a key reserve on the Showtime era teams with Hall of Famers Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and James Worthy. The former MVP was silently frustrated with not starting behind players such as Jim Brewer, Mark Lansbury, and Kurt Rambis, but sacrificed to be part of championship teams. That championship is the only thing I don't have. I'll ever do whatever I need to get it. Mcadoo said in playing with the Lakers in '82. And I'm just looking at some of his numbers. In the 1984 NBA Finals, Mcadoo averaged 12.5 points and 5.5 rebounds as the Lakers lost 4-3 to the Boston Celtics. But Mcadoo in 1985 averaged 8.2 points and 3 rebounds in the '85 Finals and 11 points in the entire playoffs. And after the '85 season, the Lakers declined to sign Bob Mcadoo. On January 31st, 1986, Mcadoo signed as a free agent with the Philadelphia 76ers. And he finished his NBA career with 29 games for the Philadelphia 76ers in the '85-'86 season, averaging 10.1 points alongside Julius Erving, Moses Malone, and Charles Barkley. So when you look at Mcadoo's overall resume, he scored 18,787 points, averaged 22.1 points per game, 9.4 rebounds, 1.5 blocks. He shot 50.4% from the floor. He's on the 75th anniversary team, a 3-time NBA scoring champion, a 2-time NBA champion, 1974-75 league MVP, 5-time NBA All-Star, and one of the greatest big men to ever play in the game. And, one of my favorite players of all time, Bob Mcadoo. Tell me what you guys think.